we'll tee you back up here. House Bill 669, you have offered us a substitute, LC 334679. Get another member out here in case we.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to bring this before the committee again. I would first like to thank you for your suggestions to talk with several people who have been very instrumental in helping me to bring this substitute to you that I think is a much better bill in many regards. I spent some time, a great deal of time, thanks to State Auditor Russell Hinton, spending some time with me going over the bill. And I think that I'll try to be short, understanding that your day is running long. You all have a lot to do and other committee meetings to attend. This bill now, instead of requiring agencies to report the aggregate federal funds that they received for the previous year, and the amount that was appropriated to them by the General Assembly, as well as the percentage of those federal funds that make up their budget, instead of them having to report that, now in working with the state auditor, we've simplified this bill to where they will compile a report that will come from the state accounting office that these agencies are already reporting to. He'll compile a simple report that will be delivered to the appropriations and that the legislature will be able to get their hands on. There'll be a short, simple, easy-to-read report that will help us to kind of make sure that we're being accountable and aware of the federal funds that make up and the percentages they comprise of the state agencies' budgets. Again, this was all without rehashing the bill. I think that I covered that last time and answer any questions anyone has. But again, this is in regards to just making sure that as a state legislature that we're aware and being accountable to the citizens of this state and realizing that there may be future cuts that come from the federal government. As a matter of fact, based on the super committee not coming to an agreement, we understand that there's 9% across the board cuts that will be passed down to the states. And again, making sure that we're doing our duty to be aware of those federal funds and developing contingency plans that we're prepared when those cuts come. We also, out of this substitute, we struck the contingency plans that required agencies to develop contingency plans based on 5 and 25% cuts to the federal 5 and 25% cuts regarding their federal funds that they receive. We're now just going to study that for the coming year in a study group to determine how we should go about that. And one thing that was brought to my attention as I brought this bill, which I mentioned last time, passed in Utah, and is now in practice, and close to 20 states are dropping. But it was brought to my attention that the governor, and I think that I should take a moment to commend him and thank him for him being proactive, and himself, even though it's not in statute right now, himself working with OPB to ask for contingency plans from agencies. So, but the coming year, this bill requires to study on whether or not that should be put in statute to ensure that we continue to ask these agencies and make sure that as a government that we're being proactive, again, to prepare for future cuts that will come. Not if, but I think a matter of when. I think that pretty much sums up this substitute and the changes that we made. I'd be glad to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
You have one. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Clark, does the state have a rainy day fund?
Yes, sir, we do.
You know how much in that fund?
About enough for about 4 days. Thank you. Over this past recession, thankfully you guys who were before me were diligent to work on building that up, and we've depleted most of it. I think we're beginning to try to.
I understand at one point there was $735 million in that fund. Are you aware of that?
I did hear that.
Okay, we're down to how much? 4 days?
We've got about, it's about 400 million.
400 million?
We're in that range.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the 11th fiscal year. But that amounts to about 3 to 4 days of operation.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Representative. Can you just clarify for me where, in your substitute legislation now, the impact on local governments as far as reporting is as compared to your original legislation?
Yes, sir. Under F, subsection 1, it requires that in the study group, they would study whether or not the political subdivisions would would provide the aggregate value of federal revenue that they're collecting in their budgets. Also, I spoke with our state auditor, and we weren't sure that he would be able to compile those. We wanted to make this simple where it's not a strain upon the local governments or upon the state auditor. We weren't sure at this point whether or not that could be included in that report by the first day of the by the start of session each year. And so we thought thought we should continue to study this for the coming year to see if we could include that in the report, without requiring the duty of the local governments to have to report that.
I have gotten a lot of, may I proceed?
Yes, sir, please.
Just a lot of, I guess, inquiries from local governments as to the necessity of their being included in this, since a lot of these federal fundings are short-term or short period of time funds that doesn't necessarily, in their opinion, seems to fit the criteria for what you're trying to cover in this. And I was just wondering if had you considered removing local governmental cities, particularly from your legislative?
Let me, if I may, just
Yes.
in answer to your question,
Please.
Representative, because it's a good one. Representative Clark, changed his bill. If you remember early on, and he was talking to the cities and about studying, I had actually made a suggestion to him that he go ahead and have the municipalities and the counties prepare a report, or simply write a letter that companies their current financial reports now that says, we hear you, we're listening, we're taking care of it, but we don't need to do the report. Because I think what the representative is looking for the state to do, and what he is recommending that the Senate Oversight Committee and House Government Affairs Committee do is look at the situation that exists in the world,
Yes.
and to see if it is not advantageous or wise for our local governments, cities and counties, political subdivision within the state, to basically eyes wide open understand that. And I've heard, I haven't heard from a single city, but I've heard from the folks that represent them, the Georgia Municipal Association, and they say that these monies only account for 1 point some percent of their budget, but very quickly to tell you they couldn't do without it, or they count on it. And we all know that. I think were you not in local government for county level? I was at the city level. We know that's important. So I believe, and the reason I interrupted the gentleman's answer to the question is I had suggested to him, hey, go ahead and have them report and let them opt out. In conversations with the local government, the local government representation, he has just asked that the committee study, do they need to report? Yes. He's not saying that they're ever going to have to report. So I think he actually watered down what I would have recommended as requirements. I think he is headed in the right direction. I understand the cities and the counties don't want people in, for lack of a better term, their sandbox. They get elected by their local folks to run it, and perhaps that's what exactly would come back. But your point's well made. It's been heard loud and clear, and I'll say for the record here that the Georgia Municipal Association has represented their members well. And hey, y'all run the state, we'll run our cities. And I believe all Representative Clark is trying to say is just realize times may be different in this country, in this state, and for our cities than we've ever seen before. So eyes wide open, realize it may only be 1%, but we may not be getting it in the future. So that's all he's ever. Now, I cut you off, Representative, but since I got you into that, I figured I would try to explain how you got to the study committee. I think it's a good compromise.
Thank you, Chairman. I think you answered that question better than I could have communicated it myself. Thank you. And thank you, Representative Epps.
I'll say one thing.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your clarification, and upon that clarification, Representative, I commend you for the bill.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Williams, did you have?
Yes, I did. I have a couple of others, but I just want to know these agencies. Do you know how many of these agencies have excess, more than they need in their departments? Are you have any kind of information? Hinton? Russell.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'm Russell Hinton. I'm state auditor. With regard to the agencies that are specified here, they basically represent a cross section of all the state agencies. Some may receive federal dollars at differing times throughout the year, but through our audit process, any state appropriations that these agencies have in excess of the amounts that they've been appropriated, that money is returned to the state treasury and is subsequently appropriated by y'all in later years. But with regard to the federal funds, pretty much the vast majority of federal funds, the money that is drawn down has previously been expended by the state. So most of those we call them reimbursement-driven grants or expenditure-driven grants. So the agency would make the expenditures, and then they would draw that money from the federal government. So there's not a lot of excess federal dollars throughout the normal operating process.
One follow-up. Yes. In the last 10 years, have we reduced the number of audits that we have, or have we increased the number of audits?
We've steadily, we have we look at state government as a whole, but the number of individual agencies has expanded and contracted over the years. For a while there we had the Department of Human Services or Human Resources, and then that's been split into a couple of different agencies, and so we pick up additional audits in that way. But largely the state's been the the government has steadily increased over time, but the substantial makeup of government is pretty much the same. We might call things some different things, but I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but
you're getting close. I think I know the answer. I don't want to put him on the spot. He's my friend.
Representative, for the record, Mr. Hinton's name is always on his reports that he sends over there, as well as his letterhead for those that were here earlier.
You and I are going to be friends for the rest of the year.
No, seriously,
I know.
I think the gentleman said you have to do a lot of work.
Yeah, he does a great job
than you've done in the past,
right?
With a very tight budget as well. And we appreciate the work you do.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I'm back in the Energy Subcommittee. I'm now in full committee here with the Budget and Fiscal Affairs. The committee members have any questions on for the author bill HB 669? If not, the hour's late. I'm trying to get action on this prior to it. Does anybody feel a redeeming need to talk further about the measure? If not, what's the pleasure of the committee? We have by committee substitute, if you would, LC 334697S.
79.
I'm sorry, 79S.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
First, I want to thank Russell Hinton for the job that he does. I serve on information and audits, and I do read those reports, and I appreciate the hard work that you do. And second, my sweet mate, I wish to congratulate him on a hard job and talking with a lot of people and working to perfect this legislation. And I'd like to move that LC 334679S receive the due pass recommendation from this committee.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second that House Bill 669 due pass recommendation by committee substitute. Is there discussion? Discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. It moves forward. You're in rules. Representative Clark, House Bill 669. We'll get it reported out this afternoon.
Thank you, Chairman.
Remember,
Thank you.
you have to do a request form for the rules chairman in order to get it on the blue sheet.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to also, I don't know if I mentioned, I'd also like to thank Deputy Director of OPB, David Tanner, also for his meeting with me several times. So thank you for your help in perfecting this, and thank you, the Chairman of the committee. I
would also like to thank you, and for everybody that had input. I know there's a lot of moving parts around some of this reporting going on these days, and some people may look at that as, I don't know, too much cross-pollination in reporting. But I will say again, I think we are in times that we have not seen, and we perhaps have not seen the end of these times in terms of our financial situations in government. So I think any information that we can get on which to base a decision, and you'll be happy to know, and a bill just passed the House today, was modified, the Government Accountability Act, to specifically talk about, in cooperation with the governor's office, which is your group. So we want to continue to promote that, working together, the House and the Senate and the governor's office. No further business before the committee. Will stand adjourned without objection. See no objection. We are adjourned.